Welcome to Spunky Spirit with Carrie Muggs, where we talk about spiritual empowerment, growth, and connection. Here's your host, spiritual life coach, author, and intuitive advisor, Carrie Muggs.
Hello, everybody. So today we are going to talk about being an empath or being empathic. A lot of intuitives are. Some are, some aren't. Some people don't even know what empathic means or that they are empathic. Empathy means that you kind of just resonate with somebody. You feel bad for them. You understand how they're feeling. Empathic is when you take on their energy without kind of realizing you're doing it. You take on sometimes physical empaths can take on physical ailments. So today I'm going to give you kind of a list of signs and signals that you're an empath or that you're empathic. So if anybody's ever told you you're an empath, you're sensitive, you're too sensitive, then you're more likely probably empathic. So I'm going to kind of go over that today, some of the signs and signals and what you can do to kind of help with that, okay? Lots of empaths will have anxiety because they are taking on other people's stuff. And when I say other people's stuff, I mean, an empath is probably someone you go to a lot because they understand you and you can talk to them and they are a really good listener. What's really happening is they're taking on your energy. And so by the time you leave, you're feeling greater, you're feeling great, and the empath has taken on your energy for you. So that's why lots of energy vampires and narcissists will find empaths specifically, not maybe meaning to, but it's just because the empath has that power to take on your energy for you, and then when you leave you feel a little bit lighter. Everybody's probably been, capable of doing this or guilty, not guilty, but doing this when you go talk to somebody. You don't know, oh, this person's an empath, they're taking on my stuff, I'm going to do it on purpose. So anyways, if you think you know somebody or you might be an empath, here's some things that may trigger that or let you know, kind of give you an idea. So, things of being an empath, let's see. So you're highly sensitive and you absorb other people's energy and emotions. So if you're around somebody who is really grumpy all the time, or if you're around somebody who cries all the time, or you're around somebody who's really negative all the time, you can take that on. An empath takes that on. They can be in one room 1 minute and be happy, and then leave the room and be completely sad because someone in the room was sad. A lot of empaths wonder sometimes if they're crazy. They can wonder if they're bipolar, just because their moods just change so much. So, that's what empaths just kind of absorb that. They're like sponges. So if an empath walks into a room where there's a fight going on or some sort of violence, the empath can just soak that up, not even realize that's what they're doing. So the next one is crowds can drain an empath or overwhelm them. So obviously, if you're crowds, if you're the type of person who goes into crowds and can't handle all the energy and you get overstimulated and you go home and you're exhausted, that's part of being an empath. And you don't have to be 100% an empath. You can have empathic traits. You can be like 90% of an empath. So what I don't want though is I don't want you to say, well, I do that, so maybe I shouldn't go get, just like the bipolar thing. If you feel like it's beyond being an empath, then you probably need to go to the doctor and get that checked out. So if some of these things like too much anxiety, if I don't want you to just be like, oh, I'm just an empath and let it go. If it is struggling your day-to-day functions, then you probably need to go get some medical help or start some meditation and try and figure out what's going on there. So the next one is empaths feel sorry for animals, pets, or babies because they feel like they're helpless. I, growing up, always wanted to be a veterinarian because I wanted to help all the animals. But then I realized I could not handle handle being around animals or pets that were in pain or sad. So that was a really big deal breaker for me. I still, to this day, me and my husband, one of our biggest fights is about the animals because I think that they just deserve way more treatment and love than they get, and he doesn't think they should eat at the table. So I don't either, but I do baby my animals and pets, and I do have a soft spot for all animals and babies. I really do, and pets. So the next one is news and movies. I can't watch movies. So I can watch good, uplifting movies. Sometimes if I know they're going to make me cry, I'll stay away from them just because it takes so much energy. It just drains me. But violent movies and scary movies, I cannot do because I just take on that energy and I'll be up for days. I'll constantly think about the movie. I'll just soak all that in, and it's really, really hard for me. And any kind of news, like shootings or anything like that, I can't watch. We recently had a tragic accident here in Idaho Falls that took a lot of family members at one time, and it really impacted me, and it really can impact empaths, things like that, because you feel sorry for the people that are going through the pain. You feel sorry for the things that they have to go through, and sometimes it's just overwhelming for an empath to do that. So that's one thing, is the violence. I can't handle a lot of violence. I can't handle scary movies. So just kind of know if that's where you're at, then kind of, stop doing some of those. Stop watching a lot of the news. Stop watching scary movies. The next one is being overwhelmed easily. There's lots of times when you're just overwhelmed and you can't figure out why. You think you've got so much going on, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, just one more thing. And this is really common, especially for, a lot of people who do actually have a lot of stuff going on, and empaths, I'm not saying that they don't, but when you just feel overwhelmed and you don't even know why, like you can be okay 1 minute and then all of a sudden you're just like, what is going on? Like, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Like one night I did, awesome group readings, and then the next day I had some more readings to do, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so overwhelmed. And it was fine. Like they were just, readings that I do all the time, but I got this overwhelmed feeling that, I'm just doing so much, and am I going to be able to do it right? And some of that's kind of normal, but if you feel like it's a lot of the times, then it's probably an empathic trait that you have. People turn to you for advice. So if people are always going to you for advice because you're a good listener, or because you understand, or because you show them empathy, it's more than likely too that you're taking on their stuff. And so when they leave you, they feel a little bit lighter, but you take on the stuff, the empath. So I kind of imagine it like this. So if someone comes to talk to you about a problem that they're having, they hand you a ball, like a little green ball, okay? And you hold on to the ball, and the ball just gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more that they vent to you. But what happens at the end, as the empath, you don't give the ball back to them. You hold the ball to yourself, and you kind of just push it in, and then you don't understand why you don't feel good. And then they leave without this heavy ball. So it's kind of, that's what empaths do. They kind of take this, and people come to you without realizing that that's what you're doing. You're taking on their energy. They think you're just a good listener, and they feel lighter and they feel better. And it could be like an empath goes to another empath and does this. It's not like just energy drainers and people like that. But we think we're doing this subconsciously. We don't realize that what we're doing. We just think we're going to a friend who's helping us. So if you do have a friend that's kind of an empath, and you know that's now that you're listening to this and you can kind of figure out what's going on, before you hand them your ball or before you vent to them, ask them if they're capable at that moment to take on some stuff. Just say, hey, I have, these issues going on. Do you have capacity to take this? Or are you in a good place to take this on right now? And if they say no, don't be offended. It's just them. And if they say yes, just go ahead and vent, but make sure that you take it back on after you talk to the empath. And if you are an empath and somebody is starting to vent to you and you just don't have the capacity for it, just say, hey, I would love to talk to you about this, but can we do it another time when I can give you my full attention? Just because, or when I have more capacity. Because what happens is you'll listen, you'll take that on, and if you're already at capacity, you're going to leave that conversation, and all of a sudden you're going to feel overwhelmed, and you're not going to know why. And it's because you took on that person's stuff. And so the stuff that's overwhelming you isn't even your own stuff, but you don't realize that. So it's kind of hard to understand when you're empathic. So if you're not an empath and you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, I don't understand this, then you're definitely not an empath. But if you're listening to this and this resonates with you, you are definitely an empath, and you need to keep listening. People sometimes empaths can take on physical stuff too. I had a friend, hopefully maybe she's listening, I don't know, but she was helping a friend who had some back issues, and the next day my friend got back issues because she took that on. So I know people are like, that's not for real, but it is. Sometimes empaths can take on physical illnesses or physical things. You know how they say that sometimes the men can take on, pregnancy issues. They can take it on empathically for the wife. That's exactly what's going on. If the man is empathic, then he can totally take on some of his wife's symptoms for her. Same thing if your spouse comes home after work. This isn't a physical one, but this is like an overwhelmed one that we just talked about. If your spouse comes home after work and starts to complain about it, and you take that on, and then all of a sudden you're feeling like kind of nauseated or kind of sick or overwhelmed, it's just because you just listen to your husband or your wife talk about these issues. So just be aware. Now that you're aware, and now that you kind of are like, okay, I think I'm an empath, that's like 100% of like trying to help it. So once you realize you have these issues, then it's so much easier to take care of. The next one is sometimes intimate relationships overwhelm you. Sometimes the commitment, sometimes the neediness, sometimes all of it, all the things like just overwhelm you, and you feel trapped and you need to escape, and it's just because you're feeling an overwhelm of the emotions. And so just kind of remember that too. It's really not about the other person. It's about you trying to figure out the emotions that you're taking on from the relationship. Most empaths are like a human lie detector. They have just a knowing when someone's lied to them, because most empaths are intuitive. And intuitive means by they just know things, like have gut intuition. They know when people are lying to them. They just know things before they happen. I was intuitive when I was little, and I would get ulcers all the time because I would get so much anxiety from being empathic, because I would take all of the stuff on around me, all the kids around me, all of the worries around me, all of the anxiety. And my dad was also, I feel like, empath too, and I would take on his stuff, a lot of his stuff. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit when we get down farther. But just so you know, you're intuitive. An empath can be very intuitive. So, and different kinds of intuitiveness, like different clairs. Lots of empaths can feel things. Lots of empaths can actually see things or just know things, or hear things. So those are the clairs, and we'll talk about that in another time in another podcast. Empaths cannot handle seeing people in pain. It's just too hard for them. Hospitals are hard. When somebody gets hurt, they kind of freak out. I remember in high school, my boyfriend was choking on something, and I couldn't handle it, and I ran out the door instead of trying to help it, but I ran back in, luckily, but yeah, empaths have a hard time seeing people in pain and trying to figure out how to help them. So this is the one I was going to talk about before. So empaths are prone to addiction, to numb their feelings because they don't know what they're feeling. So I feel like my father was an empath, but I feel like he didn't know what was going on, and he didn't know that he was, and so he drank a lot, and he was an alcoholic. And so as an intuitive and an empath, I kind of took that on when I was little too, and I tried to take on his stuff for him. Or I didn't try and take it on, it's just automatically I could feel the pain and I could feel it, and I would try and always try and please him and try and make it better for him. And so it's just because empaths have an addiction personality. It could be food, alcohol, any kind of drug. And the reason why is because it numbs the emotion. It numbs it and also lowers your frequency. So we've talked about frequency and vibration before, and it will lower the frequency, and so you can't feel as much, the intuitive part. You can't take on, if you have a lower frequency, you won't be able to take on the emotions or anything like that. But then the catch-22 is a lot of addictions with pills and alcohol and things like that come with lower frequencies. So you don't want to kind of take on those lower frequencies. You want to learn how to deal with the anxiety and the overwhelm and the stress without having to do that, so you don't have to lower your frequency. They are also fixers. Empaths like to fix things. I always used to wonder why, because you know how they say men are the fixers. Men like to fix things. But in my family, if my kids come to me, I'm a great listener, but I also, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I listen to them is what I meant to say. I listen to them, but I also want to fix it. And I have a couple of daughters who don't like me to fix it. They don't want me to fix it. They just want me to listen, which is fine, but I am a fixer because I'm an empath, so I have to fix it for them because I want things to be better for them because I don't want them to feel the pain anymore. So that's just something I have to work on. I have to just protect and listen and not try and fix. And that's been a real struggle for me. But so most empaths are fixers. They like to fix things. They like everything to be better because it obviously raises the frequency, raises the vibe, and it helps everybody just kind of be at one frequency. So okay, so empaths are also mostly introverts. They can be extroverts, but most of the time empaths are introverts, which means to recharge, you can go out, like I'm a pretty good extrovert. I can go out and have a good time and be friendly and have fun with friends and be excited, but then I come home and I'm super tired and I need to recharge, and the way that I recharge is by being alone and meditating. Now, extroverts can go out into a party, and that's how they recharge. They love the energy around them. They like to soak up the energy around them, and so that's kind of how extroverts recharge. Introverts recharge by being alone, and so most empaths are introverts. Now, that doesn't mean if you're an empath you can't be an extrovert. You're probably, if you're empathic, you can be half some extrovert and some introvert, and I kind of feel like that's how I am. But I know for me to recharge, I have to be alone. I can't be around a lot of people. Too many things overstimulate me and I get overwhelmed. So especially my phone, like I can get like 3 text messages at the same time and then a Facebook message, and I on a suddenly will go into overwhelm. And that I didn't even have to respond. I just text, and I can feel it, and I get the anxiety, and it's overwhelmed. So just little things like that. Or sometimes if I go into, especially at Christmas time, if I go into a mall and there's a lot of people, I can automatically go into overwhelm. And some people love it. Like I have a daughter who loves to go into the mall and loves all the energy and which is great. And I love part of it, but then I get home and I have to recharge. So that's kind of what empaths do, is they can love it while they're in it, but they have to recharge individually on their own. So the one thing that's hard is energy vampires and narcissists are attracted to empaths very, very commonly. It's like empaths are have this magnetism effect for narcissists and energy vampires because empaths feed them. Empaths will feed them their light. So I want you to just imagine everybody has this big, huge light inside of them, and empaths give their light to everybody. Empaths, because somebody will come up and talk to them and they'll give them some of their light, and so their light will dim a little bit, which is their frequency will lower, and then they'll give their light, and then they'll give their light, and then they're out of light, and that's when they overstimulate. That's when because they're taking on other people's emotions. So it's like someone comes up to me, hands me their emotions, and I give them some of their light. some of my light. And so it's like I take on the emotion, I give them the light, and then my light starts to dim and I'm taking on their stuff. So narcissists and energy vampires, drainers, love this because they get to have some of your light, which makes them feel good, but at the same time, they get to dump their energy on you. So this is why narcissists and empaths are they're not a great combination, but they're a common combination because narcissists almost will seek out an empath because empaths also like to fix broken people or broken things. And so they think that they can change them or they think that they can help them. So this is very common for narcissists and energy drainers to find empaths. So empaths just need to learn to protect, and I'm going to kind of teach that. Now, this is, a lot of people may have some of these signs and, a lot of people may have some of these empathic qualities about them. But if you have more than like 6 or 7 that I've said, then you're definitely on the high spectrum of being an empath. If you've only, had 1 or 2 and the rest are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happens, then you're probably on the lower spectrum of being an empath. So, so I was going to tell you the dictionary, I forgot to tell you, the dictionary definition for an empath is a person with the ability to apprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual. So it's actually in the dictionary saying that these people take on other people's energy. So just kind of be aware, now that you kind of know what an empath is, and you know some of the symptoms and some of the signs, it's kind of easier, it'll be a little bit easier for you to control. The reason why okay, so I forgot to tell you too, the reason why a lot of empaths become addicted to things is because it grounds them. It grounds them, and because empaths have a higher frequency, and the grounding lowers their frequency. But I think I did mention the lower frequency, but it helps ground. So, a couple ways to get past this as an empath, or to help you get through some of these things, there's a book, and it's called The Empath Survival Guide by Dr. Judith Orliff. I've read most of it. It's pretty good. It helps you understand some things. It goes really into depth about empaths. There's some things that I may agree with and some things I don't, but she's also a psychologist, so she kind of knows what she's talking about, and she's an empath. So if you're kind of like, oh my gosh, all these sound so legit to me, this is totally me, then I would recommend getting that book. It's called, again, The Empath Survival Guide by Dr. Judith Orliff. I think you can get it on Amazon. That's where I got mine. So, some things that will help you as an empath to block this and to work on this. Number 1 is meditate. Now, a lot of people, when I say meditate, they think, oh, all these great things are going to happen during meditation, and I'm going to learn all this stuff, and that's kind of not how it is. Meditation just brings you into the now, and it helps you practice your breathing. It helps you practice grounding, kind of helps you practice being in the now. So when you are out and you're doing these things and you get overwhelmed, you can go right back in. Because of the meditation practice you've been doing, you can get right back into that. Now, I have had some experiences during meditation, and I'm not going to say I haven't, but and it really helps me to connect. But if you're not like a medium or intuitive and you just need some grounding techniques, daily meditation helps an empath to just ground and center and get back into not being, overwhelmed and have anxiety. Another thing is Termuline. So on my blog, on my website at carrymuggs.com, there is a blog on how to protect. I think I've also done a podcast on how to protect. So Termuline's huge. Anybody who comes into my office and I feel like they're an empath and they're struggling, I give them a Termuline stone. You can buy Termuline bracelets or necklaces on Amazon. Any kind of health, place that has stones or crystals that you live by. I think I talked about Termuline in my crystal podcast too. Termuline protects. It protects you from all the negative energies, all the lower frequencies. So for an empath, a Termuline is perfect to carry with you all the time. Also, surround yourself with white light. Now, before each reading, I will surround me and my client with white light because it protects. It protects you from anybody taking your light or anybody taking your energy, or anybody just like overwhelming you, or you taking other people's stuff on without allowing them in. So just, a lot of people, I have a friend who teaches her kids to imagine a balloon, like a big, huge water balloon above them, but inside the balloon is light. And when they pop the balloon, the light flows over them and protects them. That's actually a very, very good visualization to do every day before you go out, especially in big crowds. You can also, any kind of visual, you can also protect yourself with green light. You can also pretend that you have light in an aerosol can and you're spraying it all around you to protect you from, some lower frequency energies and people who kind of drain you. And mostly, another way is nature. Empaths just really like to be out in nature. It connects them, it grounds them, it helps them be in the now, it helps them not think about what's coming up, it helps them not get overwhelmed. I know when I had a job that was kind of overwhelming because there was some negative grumpiness going on a lot, I would go outside. I would just leave and go outside for just a minute and kind of sit by some trees and just kind of resurface or reground myself. So that's kind of how it works. And it's a little difficult, especially when you don't know what it is. If you don't know that you're empathic, like honestly, I grew up not really knowing that I was an empath, and I had ulcers when I was a kid, and I had lots of anxiety, and I drank a lot in high school because I was also very intuitive, and so it would lower my frequency. And so most of my overwhelmness though was people, but I would also be overwhelmed by spirits that would show up too because of my gift. And so it would be like my phone going off constantly if a spirit showed up or a spirit showed up. And so I would get overwhelmed quite a bit. And so for those of you out there that don't know what empaths are or don't know if you're empathic, this is a great test to take to see if you are. And if you are, do those things that I suggested at the end by the book and just start practicing them and see how that helps. And the biggest thing is just take deep breaths. Just stop and take deep breaths if you get too overwhelmed. So if you guys have any questions about this, feel free to DM me on my Facebook page. It's Spunky Spirit Carrie Muggs. Or you can go to my Instagram page. It's @carriemuggs.com. Oh, no, @carriemuggs is my Instagram. But you can go to my website at carriemuggs.com. It's CARIMUGZ.com. Also, I do have a special going on right now. Today is 2019, December 12th. If you want to buy gift certificates, readings for people for Christmas, they are $10 off. You can just go get those at my website. I also am giving out a giveaway. I'm giving a free deck of spirit animal cards. If you guys watch Carrie Connects on my Instagram or my Facebook every Monday morning at 10, you'll see that I do a card reading every Monday, and I'm giving that deck out, a brand new deck out, next week. So if you're interested in that, go to my Spunky Spirit Facebook page or my Instagram page. And I think that's it. So you guys have an awesome week. And I think my next one will talk about what the other side looks like for me when I give readings and what people have told me about what the other side looks like. So you guys have an awesome week, and I will talk to you later. And thank you guys so much. You're awesome, and I appreciate you so, so much.